Hello, friends and dear viewers. Welcome to our current episode, wherein we are going to discuss about the last one. I think the hextotherms we are discussing in our earlier episode. I think, my dear friends. Now let us finish off what hextotherms literally means. Right. Hextotherms are the plants that are restricted only to Arctic and alpine regions. Friends, we know very well that what Arctic and alpine regions means, and in particular with hextotherms. These are the plants which lives above 4,800 meters in tropics. Hextotherms basically these are the plants generally restricted only to Arctic and alpine regions, whereas even in tropical regions also, where the plants which used to grow at an altitudes of more than or around 4,800 meters. These types of plants are also classified as hextotherms, whereas in temperate zones of the world, where the plants that are growing around and above 3,600 meters, these plants are also classified under hextotherms. Right. Here, if we talk about hextotherms, these are the plants have the lowest thermal requirement. It apparently means they don't require more temperature. More temperature in sense, not even the optimum levels also. Okay, and they are also adapted to short summer, which prevails in the extreme temperate regions of the world. Okay. In order to understand, dear friends, the topics which I discuss or which I choose to discuss, they need some background. I mean, they need some geographical background. That is, you should be familiar with the discipline geography, so that you can very well understand the technical terms that usually we come across. Right? The hextotherms are the plants. They have the lowest thermal requirement, and they are also adapted to short summer, which is generally the condition that prevails in extreme temperate regions of the world. They endure long and extremely cold winter months without any permanent injury. And the basic and the classical example could be the alpine vegetation. Alpine vegetation means, my dear friends, generally even in India also you can find. Of course, in countries like India, which falls under subtropicals and all, the plants or the species, I mean the flora living in higher altitudes, they can be better classified as hextotherms, right? These plants, they have the capability to withstand extreme cold winter months without getting injured, right? So alpine vegetation means generally the gymnosperms only we find in these regions. I mean the temperate or extreme temperate. The regions experiencing extreme temperate climate, as well as the plants which are grown in are seen in higher altitudes in subtropical regions also. So, friends, I think we have a lot more discussed about the effects of temperature on plants. I think it's time for us to move on to the biotic factors. Of course, I think you can understand. So far, we have discussed about the abiotic factors, generally the light and temperature. These are the climatic factors basically. These climatic factors, as if earlier I have stated that they are divisible into two parts for our convenience sake or to go through well. As a part of it, while going through the abiotic components, we have taken about the effects of light as well as the temperature, my dear friends. And it's time for us to move on to the biotic factors which influences the plants. Right. Friends, this is going to be an interesting episode, friends. Hope I think I'll finish this episode only. If not, it will be completed in the next episode. So please try to follow it because you find very interesting things in this current session, right? Okay. The biotic factor generally it refers to the living organisms that affect plant growth and development in various ways. These organisms, both macro and microorganisms, they are the living components of the environment which influence the manifestation of the genetic factor on phenotypic expression. I repeat these words once again, dear friends. While dealing with the biotic factors, I mean the living organisms that affect plant growth and development in various ways, right? These organisms, which are macro as well as microorganisms, are the living components of the environment which influence the manifestation of the genetic factor on phenotypic expression. So you need to know well about a phenotypic expression. In this context, first of all, we need to know what a phenotype and what a genotype is, right? I will explain about, I'll go through the definitions or if time permits me, I'll go in detail about what phenotype or genotype literally means. Okay. Now let's stick on to our present discussion, right? So friends, macroorganisms refers to the animals such as humans and other mammals, birds, insects, arachnids. Friends, arachnids means while dealing with zoology, we can find various phylums, of course, various groups while dealing with. There you come across with arachnida. Arachnida. So and the animals or the living beings which falls under arachnida, they can better be called as arachnids. So don't get confused. And now mollusks. Just now I told you about arachnida, and in similar lines we find one more phylum that is mollusca. And the animals or living beings which are grouped under mollusca, they are better be called as mollusks. Okay. Lastly, the plants. While microorganisms, friends, include the fungi, bacteria, virus, and nematodes. I think you know what nematode means. I need not go in detail. Okay. The effects of these biotic factors on plant expression maybe advantages or disadvantages. Depending on how they interact with the plant. That is the situation. Okay, depending on how they interact with the plant. These interactions include the mutualism, the herbivory, parasitism, and the new kind of word, it's allelopathy. That is allelopathy. So, friends, I feel that it could be a very good experience for you in knowing about all these things in detail, right? Now, let us jump on to the concept mutualism. Mutualism. So, friends, mutualism is a species to species interaction in which both the biotic factor and the plant are benefited by the relationship. Mutualism is a species to species interaction in which the biotic factor and the plant are getting benefited by the relationship. And the best examples of beneficial influence on plant growth and development through mutualism can be put in these following lines. First, the symbiotic relationship of the rhizobium bacterium and leguminous plants. Here, the rhizobia live in the roots of the legume and obtain their supply of energy from the host plant. And in exchange, the rhizobia, it's in a plural sense, fix atmospheric nitrogen and supplies it to the plant in absorbable form. In absorbable form. Friends, I repeat this word, absorbable form. I think I need to clear a few things for you. While dealing with the rhizobium bacteria as well as the root nodules of leguminous plants, here one thing we need to know, friends. Generally, plants require nitrogen. Plants require nitrogen in comparison with carbon dioxide or oxygen. The nitrogen is required in a considerable amounts. Friends, while dealing with nitrogen, we all very well know that nitrogen is one of the a major or a dominant component of atmosphere. Even then, nitrogen, which is a dominant component of atmosphere, it cannot be taken up by the plants in its natural form, because the nitrogen which we see in the atmosphere is in the form of dinitrogen state. That is in the form of dinitrogen. So there is every necessity for us to convert this dinitrogen state into nitrogen. So in this course of conversion from dinitrogen state to nitrogen, there are various forms we come across. So initially, the dinitrogen state, in which the natural existence of nitrogen taking place in atmosphere, is being converted into nitrites, later into nitrates. So all these things happens with the help of the rhizobium bacterium. So I think, friends, you can understand. I think you understood what happens literally here. So that is the thing the rhizobium bacteria takes up, and it converts the dinitrogen into nitrogen, which is the absorbable form, right? Nitrogen is an essential macronutrient for plant growth and development. It is also a component of enzymes. Friends, you all know very well that the DNA or else the RNA. What I mean to say is the nucleic acids. If we observe the structure of nucleic acids, we can better understand the importance of nitrogen. Because basically, the backbone of the nucleic acids or the fundamentals of nucleic acids is from nitrogen itself. In that sense, nitrogen is required in large amounts when compared to other nutrients, right? That means nitrogen is required in the preparation or in the formation of various enzymes, the DNA, as well as the most important one, that is the chlorophyll molecule, right? Of course, friends, the forest and the fruit trees and other plants, including annual crops, which are associated with mycorrhizal fungi, which aid in the absorption of water and nutrients, such as phosphorus and zinc from the soil. And next, the birds, the insects, and the bats. These serve as vectors of pollination. Friends, vectors you all know very well. They are nothing but the agents. They are nothing but the agents which help in the uh, which helps in the process of pollination here, which helps in the process of pollination. Of course, depending upon the agent, which I have earlier stated, maybe the birds, the insects, or bats, we have different technical terms to describe, right? And of course, pollination. I mean, the transfer of pollen from an anther to a stigma. Basically, this is a precondition for the development of fruits and seeds from flowers in the angiosperms, right? And as a reward of and as a reward, these pollinators, friends, I used the word pollinators. Pollinators are nothing but the above stated living beings. Okay, these pollinators, they feed on the nectar that the flower secretes or obtains some other benefit from the plant. Right. Friends, in our course of discussion, we need to move to a very interesting thing, that is herbivory. Herbivory. You all know well, friends, herbivores. Since in our earlier episodes, I mean, many of our episodes, we have come across with this word herbivore, and I think many of you were very much familiar and know in detail about what herbivore means, and the best examples also you all know very well, right? Going through about herbivory, friends. In herbivory, plant-eating organisms called herbivore. Plant-eating organisms called herbivore, such as ruminant animals, the rodents, insects, and mollusks feed on plant parts. Herbivores with significant deleterious effects on crop, crop growth and yield, are called pests. So I need to go once again back. Herbivores with the significant deleterious effects on crop growth and yield, are called pests. It's very technical, dear friends. Uh, Pests, we all know very well, it's very generally used term. But in terms of technical standards, a pest is nothing but a herbivore. A pest is nothing but a herbivore with significant deleterious effects on crop growth and yield. Right? Of course, damage caused by these biotic factors are varied, such as death of the entire plant or organs, the reduced root, stem, leaf, or inflorescence mass, total defoliation, bores and holes on plant parts, and other marks of feeding. Right, friends? It has been observed that continuous grazing by ruminant animals results to miniaturization of leaves and dwarf stature of moleo. Moleo. I repeat once again. It has been observed that continuous grazing by ruminant animals results to miniaturization of leaves and dwarf stature of moleo. Moleo is a technical word that is nothing but Vitex parviflora. That is Vitex parviflora. Another trees growing in pasture lands. Okay. And in this process, some insects are associated with the plant diseases. Generally, that may reduce crop yield or kill the entire plant. The aphids, the mealybugs, and scale insects are associated with the sooty mold. I have used the word, friend, sooty mold. You know well, while dealing with fungi, we come across all these things, the molds, etc. Right? So don't get confused. The sooty mold is a kind of mold, right? Further, to prevent damage from herbivores, plants have evolved anti-herbivory defenses, including chemical and physical strategies. So, friends, it's a surprising thing that we all feel that basically the plants. Many of us feel that they are static. They are static, but we can never imagine that plants contain a mechanism. Plants contain a mechanism that fights this herbivory. I mean, plant has a chemical and physical strategies to combat this anti-herbivory. A very strange and very surprising type of mechanism to combat anti-herbivory, which many of us do not know. Okay. Various plants produce toxic compounds such as nicotine, morphine, caffeine, cyanogenic substances like atropine, the mustard oils, terpenoids, and phenyl propanes. Various plants produce toxic compounds such as nicotine, morphine, caffeine, cyanogenic substances like atropine, mustard oils, terpenoids, and phenylpropanes. Friends, some plants produce high amounts of tannins and resins. Tannins and resins, of course, in leaves, because they prevent, the tannins or the resins which are produced in leaves that prevent the digestion of food. That prevents the digestion of food. Others have spines, as in cacti group and the stinging hairs, etc. So all these things they are using. These are all the things which are used by the plants to fight against herbivory. To safeguard themselves from the grazing habit by the herbivores. Now let us move on to the other aspect, that is the other topic, that is parasitism. Parasitism is an interaction between two organisms in which one organism called parasite, and this parasite is benefited by, of course, it is benefited, but it doesn't provide any kind of benefit. But in turn, while getting benefited um, from the host, it in turn causes harm to another instance host. This parasite basically it yields benefits from the host, and in turn it causes harm. Whereas we have seen in our earlier concepts, which are like what to say, the mutualism, maybe the symbiotic activity, the herbivory, etc. Here, the different kind of activity is taking place in parasitism, whereas the parasite or the living organism which takes benefits from the living organism, that is the host, and in turn it causes harm to the host. So the parasite steals the food from the host. Microorganisms such as fungi, bacteria, and virus, they injure crops by causing diseases, and hence they are called pathogens. They are called as pathogens, and examples of parasitic plants are the dodder, the mistletoe, rafflesia, of course some orchids, etc. Right. I think, friends, we need to move to the another important aspect, that is the biotic factors, whereas the plant interaction and allelopathy. Friends, I feel this particular topic, allelopathy, is a very interesting one. Let us just go in brief about what it means. Here, friends, a good number of studies have taken up with regard to study this allelopathy, and in this connection, we need to deal with a particular study made by Papadakis in 1978. Okay, as it is very, I feel it's exhaustive thing to deal with. I need an episode or a session to deal with the plant interaction and allelopathy. So, friends, I think it's necessary for us to start our next episode or session afresh with the plant interaction and allelopathy. And I think it's time for us to conclude our present session. Hope you all enjoyed this session. Thank you and thank you once again.